Puerto Rico, a small island in the Caribbean located east of the Dominican Republic and west of the U.S. and British Virgin Islands. The island was under Spanish rule since the tail end of the 15th century, but as a result of the Spanish-American War, Spain ceded Puerto Rico to the United States along with the Philippines and Guam in 1898. In 1917, the United States Congress granted Puerto Ricans U.S. citizenship, a move that the Puerto Rican House of Delegates unanimously opposed. Today, Puerto Rico is considered an unincorporated territory of the United States. Although bound by U.S. federal law, the island lacks full protection under the U.S. Constitution. Puerto Rico's head of state is the President of the United States. However, Puerto Ricans cannot vote in presidential elections. The island is represented in Congress by a non-voting delegate. At first glance, it seems that the United States has failed to practice its revolutionary decree, no taxation without representation. Yet, in an effort to distance itself from its imperial past, the U.S. has financed non-binding plebiscites so that the people of Puerto Rico could determine the island's relationship with the U.S. In 1967 and 1993, election results favored the current colonial status of the island. In the 1998 plebiscite, the results favored the current status by default, as the majority of voters chose none of the above when presented with four other options. History was made in 2012, however, as the first time election results favored the annexation of Puerto Rico by the U.S. Why then, in 2013, has the United States failed to add a 51st star to its flag? Well, the results of the 2012 election turn out to be less straightforward than one might expect. Puerto Rican voters were presented with two questions. The first, do you wish to maintain Puerto Rico's current political status? And the second, regardless of the voter's choice on the first, do you prefer 1. U.S. statehood, 2. independence, or 3. to be a sovereign, free associated state? Of the 79% of Puerto Ricans who voted, only 54% answered no on the first question. And as for the second, 61.2% chose statehood, 33.3% chose free association, and 5.5% chose independence. Prior to Election Day, those who voted yes on the first question were instructed to cast blank ballots on the second question in protest to what was seen as an anti-democratic process. And they did, as 26% of voters left the second question blank. So while a plurality of voters favored statehood, it was not a majority. In fact, when the blank ballots are considered, only about 44% of voters favored statehood. Debate over whether the blank ballots should be taken into account has been heated. But even if they are not, is the mere 8% differential between yeas and nays on the first question enough to warrant a perhaps permanent change to the U.S.-Puerto Rico relationship? Let's consider the benefits and drawbacks for the people of Puerto Rico if the island did become the 51st state of the Union. Well, if a state, Puerto Ricans would be allowed to vote for the U.S. president and would be fully protected by the rights guaranteed in the Constitution. The island would receive full Medicare reimbursements and would be able to issue state taxes to its residents. Puerto Rico would also be able to trade with all nations allied with the U.S. As for the drawbacks, Puerto Ricans would be required to pay federal income taxes and would be confronted with the decision to raise the island's legal drinking age to 21 or endure a 10% cut to federal benefits. Yet, for the most part, the loss would not be economic, but cultural. Puerto Rico would no longer be represented in the Olympic Games or Miss America pageant. Of greater consequence would be the influx of Americans into Puerto Rico. Such would dilute the prominence of spoken Spanish and perhaps increase the already rampant xenophobia that pervades the island. Much is to be considered when assessing the benefits of statehood, and more likely than not, no action will be taken until a stronger consensus is reached among the people of Puerto Rico.